ladies and gentlemen. How are you today?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Great.
Today we're going to be hearing a story called Little Red Riding Hood. Has anyone ever heard this story? Raise your hand if you've heard it. Okay, so just the littlest one hasn't heard it. Does anybody know what it's about? Sir, do you know what it's about?
It's about a girl that walks through the woods carrying goodies to her grandmother's house.
Alright, now this version of Red Riding Hood is told by James Marshall. Now there's many versions of this story because it's an oral tradition story. So there's several versions, but today we'll be hearing about this one. Are you ready? Ready. Okay, good. One day, many years ago, there lived a little girl in the woods in a little cottage with her mother. Now, she was a very sweet and darling little girl, and everyone loved her. One day, she woke up and went downstairs to go see what her mother was up to. You see, the kitchen smelled wonderfully delicious. So she said, "Mother, what are you baking today?" And her mother said, "Well, your granny isn't feeling up to snuff today, so I made her a custard. Would you mind taking it all the way to Granny's house for me?" And Little Red Riding Hood said, "Well, sure, Mother, you know I love going to Granny's house." Now, Little Red Riding Hood, she enjoyed going to visit her granny so much, but she had to walk through the deep, dark woods to get there. So when the custard was done, her mother gave her a basket, and she put the custard in the basket, and Red Riding Hood put it on her arm, and then Red Riding Hood put up her little red cap, and she set on her merry way. But before she got too far away, her mother called out the window, and she said, "Oh, Red Riding Hood, I forgot. Whatever you do, go straight to Granny's house. Do not talk to strangers, whatever you do." Can you say, no strangers? Very good. We don't talk to strangers. So, Little Red Riding Hood went on her way. But before long, the woods became deeper and darker and thicker. And Little Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, I am so scared." She was very, very nervous. But before long, a big wolf popped out, and he said, "Hello, my dear. How are you today?" You see, he was a very clever and charming wolf. Now, Little Red Riding Hood stood aback. She said, "Oh, dear me. I'm fine. I'm just headed to my granny's house." And you see, she forgot all about her promise not to talk to strangers because she was so nervous. Now, the wolf, as I said, was very clever and charming. And instead of eating her up right then and there, he decided he would just find out where she was going and what she was up to. So he said, "Well, my dear, why are you walking through these deep, dark woods all by yourself?" And she said, "Oh, well, my granny isn't feeling very good today, so my mother and I made her a custard. You see, I'm going to bring it to her, and we hope it's going to cheer her right up." Now, the wolf, he was very devious, and he came up with a plan. He thought, "I know, I will follow Red Riding Hood to her granny's house, and then I can eat them both." So he said to Red Riding Hood, "Well, my darling, no sense in you walking through these deep, dark woods all by yourself. Why don't I escort you?" So Little Red Riding Hood took his arm, and she walked with him. She trusted him. Now, it wasn't too far of a walk until they came to a beautiful patch of sunflowers, bright golden sunflowers. And the wolf said, "Well, why don't you pick some flowers for your granny? All grannies love flowers." Now, Red Riding Hood thought that this was a great idea, so she stopped and she started picking flowers, one at a time, and she put them into her basket. Now, as she was busy doing this, the wolf decided to go to Granny's house. So he snuck off, ran up to Granny's door, and knocked 3 times. "Who is it?" cried Granny. Oh, it is I, your darling granddaughter," the wolf said in his best high-pitched voice. bedroom, opened the door, and the granny said, "Oh my goodness, get out of here, you horrid, horrid wolf!" But before she could even finish her sentence, do you know what happened? The wolf gobbled her right up. Now the wolf was smart. He knew that he needed to trick Red Riding Hood. So what he did is he got under Granny's covers, and he put on Granny's cap, and he put on her reading glasses, and he just stayed there and waited, real patient. And before too long, he heard Little Red Riding Hood coming up the stairs, and she knocked 3 times. "Yes, who is it?" cried the wolf in his best granny voice. "It is I, Granny. It's your favorite granddaughter, Little Red Riding Hood." "Do come in," cried the wolf. So without knowing that the wolf was in the house, Red Riding Hood opened the door, and she went right in, and she went to Granny's room, and she was startled, for her Granny's appearance had changed. And Red Riding Hood said, "But Granny, what big eyes you have." And the wolf said, "Oh, the better to see you with, my dear." And then Red Riding Hood said, "But Granny, what long arms you have." And the wolf said, the better to hug you with, my dear." And then she said, "But Granny, what big teeth you have. Can you show me your teeth?" There they are. And he said, "The better to eat you with, my dear." And he gobbled her right up. Now, thankfully, there was a hunter hunting in the woods nearby. And so he decided that he would go and check on Granny. You see, he had heard a lot of noise coming from her house, and Granny was usually a very quiet Granny. So he walked up to the front door, and without even knocking, he opened it up and peeked inside. And do you know what he found? He found a big bad wolf sitting back in Granny's rocking chair, and his belly was very big. And that hunter was smart. He knew what had happened. He knew that the wolf had gone in there and eaten Granny. So he took his big axe, and he sliced the wolf right in half. He went chop. And the wolf's belly, it split right open, and Granny and Red Riding Hood popped right out. And Red Riding Hood said, "Oh, thank you, dear hunter. We were so nervous. It was so dark and scary in there." And Granny said, "And I couldn't even read without my reading glasses in there." So, that's pretty much the end of our story. Little Red Riding Hood went back home to her mother, and she had learned an important lesson. She had learned never, ever to talk to strangers ever again. And guess what? She never did. All right. Do you know the moral of the story? Who learned something?
Never talk to strangers.
That's right. Never, never talk to strangers. Can you say no, no strangers? Good job. No, no strangers. Thank you for watching and listening today. I hope that you had fun. We'll see you next time.